Welcome, everybody. I'm your host, Mike Thompson, and you're watching The Father Show. And today, we're going to be talking about co-parenting, and I know that's an issue a lot of times, and how you were supposed to do it, how the best way to do it. So today on The Father Show, we have a guest that's coming on to tell us how to successfully co-parent as a father. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere, and we'll see you right back. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today on The Father Show. And like I stated in the opening, we have a fantastic guest for you today, and you've seen her on our show before. We have Rosalind Sedenka, and she is the founder of Child Centered Divorce Network, a divorce and co-parenting coaching, and authors of numerous books, e-courses, and programs on divorcing with children and co-parenting successfully. Now, for instance, she has a book that you can download, and it's a free ebook on doing co-parenting right, successful strategies for avoiding painful mistakes. So at the end of the show, we're going to give you the information how you can get a hold of that ebook, but we want you to make sure you have it. And if we haven't said it before, don't forget to subscribe on our show, and also hit the hit that bell. Jeez, I just want to bring that. Hit the bell so that way you can make sure you get notified of every show that we have every week. So stay tuned and stay with us. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to welcome Rosalind Sedenka. Hey,
Thank
Rosalind,
you so much, Mike.
how are you today?
I'm great.
Good, good. So I know we are talking about co-parenting, and I know that is a real important issue that a lot of divorced dads have. And it's one of the hardest things I think in a divorce, how to co-parent after your divorce, and how are the two of you going to get along and make sure the kids stay happy. But and I know we've got a lot to talk about, so I want to dive right into it. So excuse me, I'm gonna jump into it. But what
Mhm.
are some mistakes men need to avoid when it comes down to co-parenting?
Well, that's an important question, and it's important questions that both the dads and moms both have to avoid and understand, because it's the mistakes that we make as parents after divorce that do the harm. It's not a divorce per se that damages children. It's doing the wrong thing. It's handling the divorce wrong, and especially after the divorce.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to look at our children and first remind them that they are not to blame in any way about the divorce.
Right.
And it's very important to let them know, even if you've been fighting about the children, it's not their fault. Children are always innocent. This is all adult matters that happen, and children are innocent victims. So we want to protect them in every way. But it's very important that we never fight around the children, even if it's on the
Mm-hmm.
phone or in another room. And I know how easy it is for that to happen. I'm divorced myself, and it's easy to have disagreements and conflict of all kinds. But
Mm-hmm.
studies have shown that children are emotionally and psychologically damaged by fighting and conflict. They don't want to hear about it, they don't want to know about it because they want to fix it. And if
Right.
children could fix it, we would be able to fix it ourselves. It's not an easy fix. So we want to keep the conflict away from children and let them enjoy their childhood. They deserve to have a childhood without worrying about making things better for their mom and dad. And related to not fighting with the children is never bad mouthing their other parent. It's
Absolutely.
very tempting. It's very tempting to
Yeah.
say, if your mom didn't have an affair, if your dad didn't drink so much, we wouldn't have had the divorce. We
Mm-hmm.
don't want there with our children. The rule is if your children can't fix it, then it's not their business. Adult matters are not children's business, even when you have teenagers, because their brains are not sufficiently um, developed to be able to handle and undo the messes that we've made. So we want to
Absolutely.
talk to professionals and coaches and therapists or close friends and clergy. We certainly don't want to be going to our children and bad mouthing their other parent because it hurts children deeply inside. Most children love both of their parents, even if a
Mm-hmm.
parent is a good parent, they still love them. And if they think that mom or dad could be divorcing the other parent, well, maybe mom and dad could be divorcing me if I'm a bad little girl or a bad boy, or if I didn't get good grades in
Yeah.
school, or if I was fighting with my friends. And children can really get very, very frightened and insecure. So we never want to put down and badmouth or disparage the other parent to the
Absolutely.
children, around the children, in front of the children, on phone calls to
Yeah.
your family or anyone else. Another really serious mistake is we don't want to use our children as confidants.
Mm-hmm.
It's very tempting again to say, oh, I'm so upset. I'm very depressed. I'm feeling so terrible. And I wish we didn't have these problems. We have these financial problems. We have problems with your dad's affair. We have problems because your mom spent too much money or is a gambler. This is not information to tell your children. Again, you need to go to a
Right.
professional and talk to friends and as your confidants, never ever your children. And also we don't want to use our children as messengers.
Right.
It's so much it's easy to say, "Hey, tell dad that I'm going to be an hour late to pick me up to pick you up at 7 and not 6." But kids can't be relied upon for that information. It's not their place. It's not their job to be messengers. And that's why I highly recommend online scheduling tools. There's one called twohouses.com
Mm-hmm.
that I like a lot. And these are places where you could immediately send texts or other information to change things, to update things, to correct things, and the information is always there, and you don't have to get your children in the middle of the mess. So
Yeah.
that keeps things cleaner and it reduces a lot of conflict.
Yeah. And I agree. And you're so right with the fact that we as parents have to remember we're the adults. We can't drag the kids into it or stick them in the middle of it. They have no business being a part of it. You know, the little, I think the little, as little as you can tell them, the better, and definitely not let them hear you fussing and fighting, um, over the phone, or when one drops off the kids and y'all get into an argument. All that, just when you're in front of the kids, just act like you'll still love each other. And
I,
it's
I agree.
so, because the kids will, they pick that up, and you know and and they internalize it, and then you wondering why your kid is having conflicts and problems in school, and those other things. And that's because they are busy trying to worry about you and your divorce. And why did I do that? If I didn't do that, mom and dad would still be together.
Mm-hmm.
And let me ask you, being a coach, and you deal with dating. Now, we have a lot of parents that are, they're co-parenting and they're remarried.
Mm-hmm.
And you have that dynamic where, you're, and I don't say stepkids, but your spouse's kids, um, they can make a marriage hard.
Yes.
What do you say to parents that are trying to co-parent with, even the third party? They have their new spouse has, still has to deal with her former husband, and you got to deal with that husband as well. What advice
Mm-hmm.
would you give to fathers to help, smooth that over and make it more so that everybody can get along?
Yeah, well, that's a wonderful question. And many, many people are caught in that reality. So it's more common than we may think. And it's very challenging. Step families are one of the most difficult challenges for anyone because there are so many dynamics, as you just mentioned. So, one of the rules is that the biological parent should be the only one disciplining their own children. It makes life more difficult and challenging when you are disciplining your wife's children
Mm-hmm.
because it's so easy for them to say, "Who are you? You're not my father."
Right.
And it immediately creates tension. So if mom was disciplining her own children and you're disciplining your own children, then you still have more of the original parenting dynamic. You know, there's dad being dad again, and dad's angry at me for doing this. That's understandable. When dad's wife is angry at me for doing this, then I have another argument that I could come up with, and I could change the conflict into a different direction, which isn't really necessarily fair. So you want to be very careful. Let the step parent become the friend, the support, the adult who's there in your life to protect you and guide you and help you, but not discipline you. And these blended families, because that's the term, and it's a good term to use, these blended families take time. We need a lot of time and patience, and we're building trust. After all, one day your parent says, "This is my new boyfriend or girlfriend. This is my new lover. This is the person who's now going to be in our home parenting you." It's very difficult for children of all ages. They all have different ways of adapting and coping, and some do it more easily than others. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the kids then have to make friends with new siblings who are
Mm-hmm.
in their lives. So we need to be extremely compassionate and caring. We need to take baby steps, and we need to use listening skills. We really need to let our children know that they are being heard because they may not like your new partner or the new circumstances of whatever's going on, and they have a right to feel what they're feeling. Doesn't mean that they should get their way all the time. You're still
Yeah.
the parent, but it means you're saying, "Let me hear your opinion about this. I want to know how you feel." And then you could acknowledge it and say, "I understand. If I was 16, I'd feel that way too." Or I could understand why you don't like where we're living now. However, given these circumstances, this is what we have to do, at least temporarily. And this is why mom and dad are deciding to do such and such.
Yeah.
But it has to be something where you're respecting the children and talking to them and validating what they're feeling. Because if you discount them and say, "Well, I'm the parent, so you do what I say," that may work immediately, but you're going to build up a lot of tension and animosity and
Mm-hmm.
distrust and hatred in your children. And we all know what happens as teenagers grow older and more powerful and
Mm-hmm.
stronger. They, very often you're going to get extreme resistance, and you don't want a life with tension in the family. You
No.
want
No.
peace and ease.
Yeah.
And
Because
so
that puts
there
another strain on your relationship
exactly.
with your wife or
So
your
there are
spouse.
actual skills, communication skills, ways of talking to children and to our co-parent and to
Mm-hmm.
our former spouse that relieves some of the tension and the stress in the family, and that's always a good thing to master.
So, what are some of the best ways to talk to your children?
So it's always good to get on their level, eyeball to eyeball. Sit down, get on your knees if they're really young, and look at them so that they feel that you're really giving them attention. And then you want to use I language, meaning, "I feel this, I'm worried about that," and using messages that talk about how you were feeling rather than pointing the finger and starting with you. "You always, you never, you seem like this is the way it has to be," because when you do that with a child or with an adult, it puts them on the defensive, and immediately they close down and feel that they're being tackled on some level. So when you talk about your own feelings, it eases the way to get the communication across. And you want to be as honest with your children, especially as a co-parent in after a divorce, which is a very challenging, difficult situation for anyone in any family. You want to be as honest with them as you can be, again, without giving them adult information that's above their heads. So you need to keep things simple, but you don't want to be lying to them. You don't want to be manipulating them. And one thing you don't want to do that I didn't mention earlier is you don't want to be alienating your children from their other parent. You may really not like their other parent and you may not respect their other parent, but if your children do, then it's very important that you never talk to them in a way that alienates them, that you try to get your children to dislike their other parent, because it is such a painful thing to do to a parent, and no one deserves to have their children hate them and cut off a relationship with them. And very often children who have that experience of alienation will resent it when they grow up as adults. They'll
Mm-hmm.
dislike you or reject you for doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you don't want to. And I know it really can be very difficult, even to slip up and say something, about, the kid might say, "Well, you're not my dad," and say, "Yeah, well, you're dad." No, hold up, stop. Don't even go there.
Hmm.
And that's okay as long as you don't get it all out. Just, you have to control yourself and what you're about to say, so that it's not going to, you're really going to make a bad situation worse, because that's not going to
Exactly.
make the kid feel any better about you if you're going to talk about their parent, whether that parent is there or not. So I know anytime that you have these third parties, and sometimes four, because you got the father at one end and the mother at another end, and now you got the stepmom, and now you got the stepdad, and so you got four grown adults that are trying to work together. And I would love to see a set of four parents, working together to raise their kids, and they all get together and they all get along. And I don't know if that's a pipe dream, but I know somebody out there is
No,
doing it.
oh, I have clients who have successfully been doing that for decades. So
Yeah.
it's definitely something that can be done, and it should be the goal for everyone. It isn't possible in every case, but it should be the goal to start that way and work towards that, because the children will thank you when they're grown adults.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to fathers about coping with conflict?
So coping with conflict is a huge challenge in any relationship, and of course, it's even more complicated when you're dealing with divorce. So you have to remember that everyone's feelings are on edge, and the thing about people who are divorced is you know how to push each other's buttons. You've been doing
Mm-hmm.
that for many years,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's easy. You know what to say to hurt your former partner, and you have to bite your tongue, as you said. You really have to own your stuff. If you are mistaken or wrong, because sometimes we jump to conclusions and we make erroneous assumptions that aren't really so, and we accuse our partner of something too quickly. If we have the ability to own it and say, "Gee, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that," or "I didn't mean that," or "I should have
Mm-hmm.
called you and talked to you about it first,"
Mm-hmm.
it gives your children an example that human beings are never perfect. We all make mistakes. We want our kids to understand that we make mistakes. We catch them making mistakes. If they see their parents stopping and saying, "I'm sorry, I'm going to do better next time," then children are raised feeling it's okay to do that. And as role models, that's really, really important for them. It's a wonderful lesson.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be afraid to say, "I shouldn't have said that about your mom last month. That was really wrong, and I apologize for that." Or, "I shouldn't have made that decision, and thinking it over again and talking to your mom, we decided we're going to do it differently. I talked too fast."
Yeah.
Um, saying things that you can take back and own is very mature, very responsible, very parental, and it's a wonderful way for children to really learn how to be grown adults and cope with difficult challenges, because that's what divorce and other things like that are. They're huge challenges in life that we
Mm-hmm.
can't always avoid, and we could show our children that there are ways to take action and live through it and move through it and look for a brighter, happier outcome. And there can be a happier outcome on the other side of divorce.
Yeah.
Very often children are happier because they're out of the conflict, they're out of the tension. They're seeing role models of happy parents in new relationships that are more fulfilling. Hopefully, if people are making better decisions next time around.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know I see that in some families that I dealt with, that the kids are very happy. They still love their mom and dad, but they're happy to see, say, the one of their parents that has moved on, and they're happy to see that that person is happy and living life, fully, and it's not so much conflicts going on, so they don't have to deal with it, and they can enjoy themselves. So it
Yeah.
is, and we say a lot of times the grass is not greener on the other side of the fence, but sometimes it's not bad. It's a little bit better.
And that's what we're hoping for everyone. That we the big key is learning the lesson from whatever life trauma we go through.
Right.
We
Right.
can't always prevent and stop these things, but if we find the nugget and the lesson, then it isn't in vain and we can move on and do better. Some people just go on and find another spouse and another spouse and another spouse, and they just move from relationship to relationship.
Yeah.
They haven't learned a thing,
Right.
and that is very sad, and it's very harmful for all the people who come into their lives because they keep blaming everyone else except themselves.
Yeah. They haven't taken the time to get to know either themselves or what they did wrong. Do some self-reflecting and find out
Hmm.
what was it that I did, because you still had a part in it. So what was it that I did that made my marriage end? You know, and even if your spouse had an affair, you can still look at it and say, okay, what did I do or didn't do that maybe pushed him or her over to having an affair? So
Exactly.
you still have something you can learn from it. And so you need that time to reflect, and you need that time to learn and think about, okay, what am I not going to do in my next relationship, or what am I going to do in my next relationship? And for men, I know a lot of times is we have a lack of communication. We don't really want to say,
Mhm.
and that might be something that could have saved your marriage or kept it from going astray, or what have you. But whatever the case may be, so you still need that time to sit down and reflect and learn what happened and how can I make my next relationship better.
Yes, well said, Mike. I totally agree with you, and that's a crucially important point. I call it the gift. If you look for the gift in the experience, as traumatic and depressing as an experience may have been, if we find that golden nugget, the gift, then and we don't repeat it, then
Mm-hmm.
we're so far ahead. We could look back and say that was a turning point in my life, and now I know better and I'll do better. And
Right.
remember, we're always role models for our kids. They're watching and learning from us.
Absolutely. So, what are some co-parenting success tips you can give to fathers that can help them going forward?
So we want to remember to keep that role model in mind. And how do we want our children to behave when they're having a crisis or a conflict or a difficulty? And we want to talk to them, not at them. So we want to be listening. Sometimes especially as fathers, we get into lecturing. I know best, I'm the father, and then we lecture. And everything's about should. And we're not hearing where the kids are at. And sometimes, if we just sit and listen and let them talk for a while, we get insights about what they're feeling. The feelings have more of an impact on what decisions we make about ourselves, our self esteem, and our behavior than the outside physical things that are just going on. So
Mm-hmm.
if a child feels unworthy and feels ridiculed or feels like a failure in their parents' eyes, then their behavior choices are going to be different because they're
Mm-hmm.
walking around wounded emotionally. And parents can do wonderful things. If you catch your children doing something right, the littlest thing, thank you for picking that paper off the floor and putting it in the trash. Thank you for making your bed. Thank you for brushing your teeth without my asking.
Yeah.
Just catch them doing little things. It boosts their self esteem. They feel better about themselves and they're better able to handle the challenges that are outside of the home when they're in school and someone is bullying them or
Mm-hmm.
they have a moral integrity decision to make. They're going to depend on how they feel. Their self esteem is really crucial as they're growing up. And as parents, we either catch them making mistakes more of the time or we catch them doing things right more of the time.
Yeah.
And that makes a huge, huge difference in the child that we're raising. And we want to really boost their self esteem so they can take ridicule and discipline
Yeah.
because children certainly earn it
Yeah.
at times. But we don't want their lives to for them to feel like the only time you're looking and giving them attention is when you're reprimanding them, when you're
Yeah.
picking on them, when
Yeah.
you're making them feel bad about themselves.
Because
So that's a
nobody,
huge step.
yeah, nobody wants to feel that. Nobody wants to hear that. If your boss, you know, parents out there, if your boss was to sit there and only talk to you when you've done something wrong, how would you feel? So, imagine, and you're a grown adult. So imagine how a child is going to feel if the only thing he ever gets is negativity. So,
Exactly.
yeah, we can't do that. That's just wrong.
Yeah. And we have to remember that they're little and they make mistakes that we know better and they don't. So
Mm-hmm.
there's ways of correcting them without making them feel foolish or dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and we when we also there's something called the sandwich technique is if you have
Right.
a criticism
Yeah.
of your child, you could start by acknowledging something they did well and then slipping in the criticism and then
Mm-hmm.
ending with another thing they did well. So they kind of feel that everything that you say to them isn't just about their being wrong. And it helps them feel I'm pretty good at this and that. I need to learn some better ways of doing the other thing, but everything that dad doesn't look at me and think I'm a failure about everything. And
Yeah.
it's really good for kids to feel that kids need to feel respected, especially by their dads, because some kids fear their fathers, are intimidated by their fathers, or have a more superficial relationship with their fathers. And we want fathers to open their hearts and let their children into their hearts because that's what makes more difference to children than anything else. It's not how much money you make, it's not how prestigious your career is, it's how much the child feels loved by you
Yeah.
and feels protected by you and can go to you for comfort and security.
Absolutely. So I want you to tell the audience about your free ebook on doing co-parenting right, and what can they expect from it, and how do they go about getting it, and so let them know so they can get it if they find that they need it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, so this book is filled with tips and insights like the ones we've been talking about and a lot more in a lot more detail that you can read. There's short little chapters about a variety of topics, communication and talking to your ex, talking to your children, how children react at different ages and stages in their life. And if you go to my website, childcentereddivorce.com, it's right on the homepage to download. Just enter your email address, instant download. You'll have the free ebook. It's right at the top of the page at childcentereddivorce.com. And it will give you a wealth of information that it's really useful, not only today, but for months and years ahead, because it's good common sense information about behaving well, communicating well, and parenting well for your children.
Well, good. So, Rosalind, thank you so much for being on our show today. But that's our time, and I want everybody to definitely get that book if you need it. I know there's a wealth of information for you, and you won't go wrong. I mean, Rosalind, you said it earlier. Knowledge is going to give you power. Knowledge is going to help you grow, and we all need to continually to grow even as we get older. Nobody knows everything, and there is no such thing as a perfect parent. So you're not going to be, but you can strive to be the best parent that you can possibly be. But that's going to take education and discipline and knowing what you can and cannot do, and also knowing your kids, because every kid is different. So you got to know them. But and Rosalind, how can our audience get a hold of you? Is that you still using your website as well?
Yeah, you could just go to childcentereddivorce.com and click on coaching, and you'll find me there. So I do personal coaching services. I have coaching courses and programs for those who don't want to do one-on-one individual work. I have lots and lots of options, all centered around divorce and co-parenting.
Okay.
And I have a weekly blog with tons of articles there. So it's a wealth of resources all in one place. And everything is focused on parents and children having the best possible outcome on a long term basis for months and years ahead.
All right. Well, good, good, because we want them to find that. We want them to have the best relationship they can with their kids and have the best life that they possibly can as well. So, Rosalind, thank you for being on the Father Show today, and it's been a pleasure having you again. And we'll see about the third time. So we can make this happen again.
Always a pleasure, Mike.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for today. I'm telling you, this has been fantastic. I know there's some good information that you have picked up on, and you can also find Rosalind on our website on the Father Show with MikeThompson.com, and go there and you can look on the resources. And Rosalind is located in Florida, so just hit the state of Florida, and her information will come up as well, and you can get a hold of her. If not, we're going to have this information on this show so you can wind back the tape a little bit and get her information. But we want to make sure that you have all that information that you need so that you can have the best relationship that you possibly can with your child. And don't forget to subscribe to the show and like it, and also, most importantly, share it. If you know somebody else out there that's going through difficult time, share the show with them. Let them know that they can come out to the Father Show, and we have information there for them. And also, feel free to leave comments. I want to read them all. I will get back with you as well. But ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. And next week, we're going to have another show. And I can't wait to have you again next week. Until then, God bless. Have a great time and stay safe.